So before I jump into today's video, I've had a few requests to introduce my co-hosts. So I thought I'd just give you a quick glimpse of them. Going from left to right, you have Taka, who's a Kelpie Lab cross. She's now about 14 years old. Snuggling with her is Mischief, aka Missy, who's only about 18 months old. And then on the right hand side you have the snorer herself, Amira. So that's my three co-hosts, the ones that seem to love interrupting my videos, or at least seem to love adding their own contribution to my videos. So now let's jump into today's video. So I'm taking a slight break today from looking at the timeline to discuss something that I came across the other day, and it's led to a lot of questions. And to me it is something significant that has me asking, why weren't investigators asking about this? Or were they intentionally not asking about it, and does it mean that Jenn is in deep crap? So yeah, what I'm talking about is something which to me puts Jenn in a really bad light, and once again brings up the question of, did she know on that morning what had happened to her daughter? I'm going to go through a number of clips first and explain the significance, and then I'm also going to go through some parts from documents and some images, and hopefully by the time I've got through all of that, it will have explained where I'm coming from.
Between your initial statement to the police, a lot of things have changed. The initial statement to the police was you watched her get dressed, you watched her leave, you knew exactly what she was wearing.
Can I tell you my thought process on that, or where I came from with that? I was handed this form, and I'm like, where do I start? What do I write? And somebody said, tell them what you saw. And so I started with I saw. And then I wrote out what I wrote out. But it wasn't until later I was like, wait, I didn't see her. I assumed that I saw her. I assumed that I heard her, but I didn't. In reality, I didn't see her. I only saw him. And I heard something in the kitchen, but I don't know who that was.
So I think so many of us, when we heard that, were still somewhat cynical about what she was saying there. That she's saying, oh, I thought I saw her, and I was handed this form, and they said, say what you saw, so I wrote it. She gives a few versions of that, which to me is also a little bit alarming, because it means that she's forgotten her story. So it sounds to me that actually she originally said that she saw Maddie that morning, and then as they perfected the narrative, she suddenly realised that that's not going to work. So I still feel that she's lying there. But here's what is important to hold in mind here. She makes a big point of, I realised that I hadn't seen her. I realised that I saw Stefan. I realised I heard sounds in the kitchen, but I realised that I hadn't seen her. Keep that in mind as we go through this video, and that you'll understand why I'm saying that when we get to the end.
Your continued first reaction is to protect this guy. You just said, I only saw a picture of him, whatever your verbiage was, I say blowjob, of his penis in her mouth, and your first reaction was, fuck. Oh my, victimized? No. She's being abused? No. It's Stefan needs a lawyer. Who the fuck cares if we think he killed her? He's...
I don't know why. I don't know why I said that.
But that's the problem. You don't know why. So the reaction in your mind is you are continuously protecting this guy. So why do I sit here and believe that you don't? Because right now, you know Stefan killed her. You know Stefan's been raping her. You know without her body, can he be charged with murder?
I don't know.
They showed you a fucking picture of it. And you still protected him. So how am I supposed to not think that the thought process in your mind is until she's found, Stefan can't be charged with murder? Because we both now know that you don't want him to be charged with murder because you want him to have a lawyer.
Okay, I think for many of us, when we watched that, it was a major eureka moment. That moment of, yep, this guy he gets it. He sees what we see. Because throughout all the interviews leading up to that, she did seem to be continually standing up for Stefan. And he's calling her out here. She's been shown images that should make her want to kill the guy. And what does she do? She's concerned with getting a lawyer for him. So concerned that not only did she say to Chris Stearns, the father, Stefan needs to get a lawyer, you need to get him a lawyer now, but she also contacted her ex-husband Stephen to get him to help her get a lawyer for Stefan. She was so concerned about getting a lawyer with Stefan, not so concerned about what he'd done to her daughter. Now, the other thing here in this interview that is significant is the technique that is being used by the detective here. He is heightening the engagement there. He is becoming combative. He's yelling at her. Why is he doing that? Is he losing his temper? No. This is all strategy. The whole point there is to get a reaction out of her. To get her to match that anger. You would expect when someone is yelling at you and essentially saying you're involved and you care more about this mongrel than your own child, you would expect the response, especially when they are being that combative, you would expect her to be, how dare you accuse me of these things? But she doesn't do that at all. She doesn't become angry at him for accusing her of these things at all. She just keeps giving excuses. She doesn't even fall to pieces. Now, you would expect in that situation that the parent would be just losing the plot by then. But she's still relatively calm. She's more concerned about giving excuses for why she has supported Stefan. She's not angry about being accused of supporting Stefan. She's not angry about what Stefan did to her daughter. That is a huge red flag for me. And I think the detectives, that's what they were after. They wanted to see what sort of reaction they would get from her if they directly made those accusations. That is not the reaction of someone who knows nothing, in my opinion. Now, with those two clips that I've just played in mind, let's move on and look at some more clips, and hopefully as we go along, you'll start to get the gist of where I'm going with this.
Like, you mentioned something about you hearing noises, and then you woke up. So how exactly did that go down?
Monday morning, I was woken up by Stefan Stearns coming into my bedroom to try to put the leash on the dog. He was saying, "Here, puppy, let's go."
So there is, of course, multiple versions of that. But in essence, she's saying that she woke up because Stefan came into her room. this is someone who claims that she's so out of it on meds that she doesn't know what's going on. But she was awake enough. She was able to wake up and be alert because someone had come into her room.
In this period of time that you have been awoken by Stefan, do you hear or see anybody else in your household?
I hear somebody in the kitchen. I'm not sure who it was. I'm not sure who it was.
Okay. Could you identify it by size, like their steps? Could you identify gender by their voice? Anything like that?
All I heard was sounds of like cabinets shutting, like somebody in there shutting, like looking for something and shutting.
Okay.
So we're establishing here also that she was awake enough to be aware that there were noises in the kitchen that sounded like someone opening and shutting cabinets, etc. So she's been easily woken when Stefan walked into her room. And hey, most of us would wake if someone walked into our bedrooms, no matter how deeply we were sleeping. It's human instinct. But not only that, she was awake enough to be aware of sounds coming from the kitchen. That's not even in her own bedroom, that's outside of her bedroom. In fact, to be more specific, it's not even directly outside of her bedroom, because you've got that little seating area outside of her bedroom. So the kitchen is the other side of the room next to her bedroom. So she can hear someone opening and shutting cupboard doors outside of her room, some distance away from her door. She's aware of that.
Now, if your daughter had been awake, would she come in and say goodbye to you before school or not? Just let you sleep?
I would have hoped she would have come by and say goodbye to me.
So straight after the question of would your daughter have come in and said goodbye to you, there's a long pause. She doesn't know how to answer that question. And I actually think that the reason for that is because she suddenly realised that however she answered it was going to be important. If she says, no, I doubt she would have come in and said goodbye to me, most people are going to call BS on that. Because why would a child not pop in their head in their parents' bedroom and say, you know, I'm going to school now? In fact, if she was awake, she was woken by Stefan, she was awake enough to hear someone making sounds in the kitchen. Even if she was too damn lazy to get her ass out of bed to go and say good morning to her daughter, wouldn't you expect her to call out? Now, one of my commenters made a really good comment on one of my previous videos about their children leaving for school early, catching the bus early, and they always made sure that they said goodbye to their children before they caught the bus. And now, I'm not a mother, I'm an aunt, but I asked my sister the same question. I said, now, when your eldest was catching a bus at catching a train, and I'll backtrack a bit. When her eldest was about 21, she started working down in Melbourne. And while she was looking for somewhere to rent in Melbourne, she was still living up here in Bendigo, travelling down to Melbourne every day, which meant catching the train really, really early. And yet, still at 21, not 12 or 13, at 21, when she was heading out the door to get to the train station at like 5:30 in the morning, my sister was wide awake and made sure that she said, goodbye, have a good day, see you tonight. Because that's natural for any mother to do. So it's really telling here especially when her voice drops again and she says, well, I would hope that she would have done that, or something along those lines. Because she realises here she's backed into a corner. She realises that it should have been normal for her to have had some contact with her daughter before her daughter went to school. Now, there was quite a bit of discussion over Maddie's routines. So I'm going to play some clips from that I think are significant. And I will explain why they are significant as we go along.
I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine.
Okay. Does she brush her teeth at night?
In the shower.
In the shower? Okay.
Now, that's something that I think we've all overlooked. Okay, she brushes her teeth at night. Where does she do it? She does it in the shower. Where's the shower? In the ensuite of Jenn's bathroom. Now, why does that matter? Because we're talking about the night before. Well, I know the story is that she was going to have breakfast at Macca's. But, you know, sometimes you wake up and you still feel like you've got fur on your teeth from sleeping. Why wouldn't she brush her teeth before leaving the house that morning? Even if supposedly she was going to have Macca's. I know that possibly sounds unusual, but this is coming from someone who used to travel. I used to drive an hour or an hour and a quarter to get to work of a morning. And because I'm not a morning person, I would eat breakfast in the car while I was driving. I would brush my teeth before I left home. Because even though I hadn't eaten at that stage, it still felt better heading out into the day with clean, freshly brushed teeth. And I think when we look at all the images of Maddie, definitely I think personal hygiene was important. So, apparently, her toothbrush was in Jenn's bathroom, but Jenn's not concerned about her brushing her teeth that morning. Interesting. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay. And is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
Okay, so we know from other interviews that Jenn apparently has this paranoia about Maddie being allowed to take her own meds. And she doesn't just refer to the nighttime meds. She basically says that she doesn't like Maddie taking her meds unless someone is watching her doing so. And essentially she's saying it's a rarity for her to allow Maddie to take her meds on her own, and that she likes to make sure that Maddie is taking the right meds. So keep that in mind. It will all come together once we get towards the end.
This evening, we had, I had already discussed prior to Stefan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready, so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning.
Does Madeline have like a water bottle or a hydro flask or whatever the kids call it that she likes to sleep with and bring up or bring wherever she's sleeping?
Typically not. That stays downstairs in her backpack, and then she'll clean it in the morning and then fill it back up and just leave it in her backpack. That typically stays in the backpack.
Okay.
So typically, or so she says here, Maddie leaves her drink bottle in her backpack until she's getting ready for school, and then she cleans it, refills it, puts it back in her backpack. She also said before that she had told Maddie to organise herself for the following day, told her to get her clothes out, fill her drink bottle, etc. So there's a few conversations here regarding the drink bottle. The idea being that supposedly the drink bottle should have been filled up and sitting inside Maddie's bag.
Her phone was on her dresser. When I found it, I was like, oh my god, she's putting her phone again. That's great. I brought it with me to the school because I was just gonna yell at her and then just hand it to her so she could have something to do on our way home.
So I think many of us have discussed the oddness of the whole phone narrative, and I pointed out in yesterday's narrative that she didn't touch the phone apparently until just as she was leaving the house. So she was supposedly straightening up, went into Maddie's room, and she said that was in the morning, went into Maddie's room, her fake room, while she was straightening up, saw Maddie's phone, and clearly, according to her narrative, made a mental note that she would come back in the afternoon and grab the phone from that location and then take it with her to pick Maddie up. And I mentioned yesterday, why wouldn't you actually, when you saw that phone, so that you remembered to take it with you, wouldn't you put it with your car keys or with your bag or with your own phone, rather than leave it there and hope that you remember that it's there? But there is some significance here to the phone as well, not just the fact that she let it sit there, not just the fact that I don't believe that she did any straightening up. So I can't understand why she's saying this story of seeing the phone when she straightened things up. Why she was supposedly in Maddie's room, because where that phone was sitting, if it was on the dresser, it would have been well and truly out of sight unless you went into that room. So it wasn't all that easy to spot.
My entire day was focused around Maddie.
On a normal basis.
I would wake up first thing in the morning, make sure she was ready, make her breakfast, get her backpack and water bottle ready. If she's taking lunch, get her some lunch ready. This is me doing this while she's getting ready. Walk the dog, come back, make sure she takes all her medications before school.
Okay, so first up, in this instance, she's saying that, in fact, she prepares Maddie's water bottle for her of a morning, gets everything ready, her water bottle, her lunch, her bag, etc. But she also mentions here, and I think this is super important, that she's essentially saying her whole life evolves around Maddie. And she does all these, she's the perfect mum of a morning, doing all this stuff, getting Maddie for school, getting Maddie ready for school, including preparing her water bottle for her and making sure that she takes her meds. Because we know that Maddie needs to take ADHD meds before she goes to school of a day. So that is something that is important. And apparently taking her meds is super important to Jenn, or Maddie taking her meds is super important to Jenn, so that she has to watch Maddie take her meds to make sure that she gets it right and to make sure that she takes her meds. There's been no conversation about if she knows if Maddie took her ADHD meds that morning before school. Now, we know that Maddie didn't take her ADHD meds that morning before school because Maddie was no longer capable of taking her meds before school. But that part of the conversation doesn't come up. There's quite a few significant things that don't come up in the conversation. So I'm going to show you a few pages from some of the documents, and then I'm going to share some images and point out some things in those images that are significant. And then hopefully that should pull all this together and you'll be able to understand what I'm getting at here. But I'm just trying to cover all bases first before I pull all the strands together. Now, unfortunately, when all this stuff was sent with FOIA requests, it looks like they've highlighted each of the pieces of evidence as they've listed them, which is why you've got all that grey over them, but you can still read them. The bit in the highlighted box that I put on there refers to Maddie's medications. So this is the evidence list, and they're saying 3 prescription medications, we know exactly what 3 medications they were, belonging to Madeline. And in brackets underneath, this is super important, downstairs bedroom. Now if you look down a bit underneath that, you can see that the thing underneath that, which I've accidentally covered up, they have differentiated. They've got downstairs bedroom and they've got bedroom area of living room. Maddie's medications were kept in Jenn's bedroom. That's huge, because in order to take her medications that morning, Maddie would have had to have gone into Jenn's bedroom to get the medications. There's no discussion whatsoever about any of that. Jenn admits that she didn't see Maddie that morning. She even says, I realised that I saw Stefan and I realised that I'd heard noises in the kitchen, but that I hadn't seen Maddie. She is awake enough by that time of the morning when Maddie should have been getting ready for school, that she was instantaneously awake when Stefan walked into her bedroom. She was awake enough to hear noises in the kitchen. Somehow, in all that, she seems to think that she didn't see Maddie at all. But she hasn't, from that, gone, well, hang on, Maddie should have come in and got her medications from my bedroom. Does she say anything about questioning Stefan about if Maddie had got her medications? Did she say anything about any conversation when Stefan went in to get the dog about Maddie's medications? No. Nothing has been said about Maddie's ADHD medications from that morning. And for some reason, detectives haven't asked her about that. Whether this is something that they're keeping up their sleeve for later, or whether the detectives, when they were doing those interviews with her, hadn't yet looked at all the evidence photos or the evidence lists and hadn't connected the dots. If they had connected the dots by the 18th of April interview, they certainly didn't ask about it then. Now, there's several reports about the dumpsters, and I'm going to highlight this at the bottom of the middle of the trash pile. So this is where they had collected the dumpster and dumped all the trash out and were going through it. So at the bottom of the middle of the trash pile was a tyre and a trash bag covered in grey paint. Inside the trash bag was one white Crocs sandal and a backpack. Inside the backpack was school supplies and an Orange County Public Schools laptop bearing the victim's name. There was also grey paint on the tyre and backpack. So I read this And the first question that came to mind was, where's Maddie's drink bottle? Have they just not listed it in the evidence? Or was it not in her bag? So, of course, I went to the photos, the evidence photos. So far here, this is before they have pulled anything out of the bag. You can see no drink bottle is evident right there. There's school books, as they mentioned, school supplies. So they've pulled out a bunch of smaller things from the backpack. Looks like there's some various bits of makeup that she used to take to school with her, probably. It's hard to tell through the paint, but I'm thinking there's probably mascara there. Possibly eyeliner, I'm not sure. Pens, other things, maybe that little tub is a lip gloss. Still can't see anything here that looks like a drink bottle. And I've zoomed in on this one because originally I thought, oh, is that a water bottle? And then I went, no, because look at the size of it next to the asthma inhaler. Whatever that plastic bottle is, if it's a plastic bottle, it sure as hell isn't a drink bottle. I've zoomed in on this majorly, obviously, but you can see here there is her asthma inhaler. Then there is just the inside of the bag, some kind of empty bottle of some sort. None of the photos of Maddie's backpack show a drink bottle. And it's not listed anywhere in the evidence. I went through it all with a really fine tooth comb, meaning that Maddie's drink bottle wasn't in her backpack. However, when we start to look at the images from the kitchen, right there in the front, you have 2 drink flasks and an empty water bottle. So I'm thinking that one of those was probably Maddie's water bottle. The fact that there's 2 matching flasks there, to me would suggest that one of those belongs to Jenn, one of those belongs to Maddie. Now, Jenn claims that her whole world evolves around Maddie. She discovered Maddie's phone earlier that day in the morning. She surely would have seen that drink bottle because that's far easier to spot than Maddie's phone, which was tucked away on the dresser in Maddie's room. Whereas those drink bottles would have been the first thing that Jenn saw when she walked out of her bedroom. Now, I'm sorry, but if you're a mother who supposedly your whole world evolves around your child, and you've realised that they've gone to school with neither their mobile phone or their drink bottle, wouldn't you be kind of concerned? Wouldn't you suddenly go, well, I think I better drop these off at the school because I don't want my child going all day without a drink? But that didn't happen. Now, maybe there's provision at the school for kids who don't have their drink bottles. I don't know, but I'm guessing that given all the changes that have occurred since COVID, it's not like the school's going to have spare drink bottles that they can let kids use during the day. Maybe the kids can go to the staff room and ask for a glass of water. I don't know. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. But regardless of that, as a mother, you would think that, and as a mother who supposedly everything she did was for Maddie, particularly given that she had an appointment in that direction, I'm sorry, but wouldn't you collect the phone and the drink bottle and drop them off at the school for your daughter? And if not, when she went to collect Maddie after school, why take the phone and not the drink bottle? Wouldn't your first thought be, she's going to be thirsty, I better make sure she's got a drink? Major red flag there for me. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on that bedside table first and have a think about what you don't see on that bedside table. Now, there's no images that I'm aware of that show what's in that orange bag, but what we can definitely see that is absent from that table is there's no hairbrush, there's no makeup. Given that Maddie had ADHD, I can't see her keeping her makeup in a bag. That's an extra step in terms of getting ready of a morning. So her makeup should be lying around or sitting somewhere where it only requires one step, picking it up, taking the lid off and using it. I can see what looks like the lid of a nail polish behind the octopus, so maybe that orange bag has nail polish in it. Could be a lid, any kind of lid, but it looks to me like a nail polish lid. Okay, so moving over to Maddie's dresser, where apparently this is where her phone was left. Looks like a bit of nail polish remover there, still no hairbrush, no makeup. Now, she's 13. She's not going to go to school without putting on makeup, is she? Every image that we've seen of her as a tween or a teen, she's been wearing makeup. So it was something that was important to her, clearly. Now, before I come back to talking about Maddie's makeup, I want to point out the croc conundrum. Okay, we have one croc that was in the dumpster, that's on the left-hand side, with Maddie's backpack. One croc that was in the top of the pile of shoes in Jenn's bedroom. Unmistakable. And you look at that pile of shoes, you can see Jenn's Crocs, both extremely visible in that pile of shoes. Now, one thing that I quite often see in videos that Americans make when they're making observations about odd things about Australia is they comment on the fact that in our northern states where it's really hot, so like Queensland, northern New South Wales, there's a fascination by people from other countries by the fact that in the northern states you quite often see people just getting around in supermarkets, on the street, whatever, going barefoot. That to me says there probably isn't a huge barefoot culture in the United States. Now, maybe there is areas of Florida that have a barefoot culture, but really, do we think Jenn is a barefoot kind of person? Nuh-uh. Jenn's not going to be your barefoot kind of person. What am I getting at? Jenn had to have put shoes on that morning. She didn't sleep wearing shoes. She had to have put shoes on that morning. Looks like she keeps all her shoes in one big pile. So that to me would say she went over to that pile, chose whatever shoes she was going to wear that day, and she didn't notice that there were actually 3 white Crocs in that pile? Really? Explain that to me. If I was going to go over to my... Obviously, my shoes are better organised than that. I've got proper shoe racks, so my shoes are side by side. So I would pretty quickly notice that if I had 3 of something instead of 2. But let's just say, hypothetically, that I was like Jenn, and I just had all my shoes shoved in the corner in a pile. I think I would notice if I had 3 of one particular shoe when I should only have 2. I think most people can count to 3. Just my observation. So, to me, that should have been something that Jenn was questioning from the morning. She should have been aware that Croc was there. And then when they're giving these descriptions to police of what Maddie was wearing, she should have been questioning what Maddie was wearing, because she should have realised that there was a Croc in her bedroom. Okay, so having gone through what we can't see in Maddie's bedroom, I want to go through what we can see in Jenn's bedroom. Specifically on this long dresser that is along the side of the wall. So I'm going to zoom in and point out what is there. Well, would you look at that? Right there in Jenn's room, on that dresser right next to her bed, is 2 makeup stations. All sorts of brushes. You've got everything you need, including hair ties. You've got a makeup mirror there. Looks like makeup station. Because obviously you need a mirror to put on makeup as well. Didn't see one of those in Maddie's room. So there's makeup sponges. There's multiple makeup sponges there. Is this where Maddie would normally put on her makeup? Because if it is, Jenn would have to realise that Maddie, well, she says, I didn't see Maddie at all. I saw Steph and I heard someone in the kitchen. I didn't see Maddie. But she hasn't questioned why Maddie supposedly went to school with no makeup on. Now, perhaps all that makeup in Jenn's room is Jenn's makeup. But, like I said, there was no makeup in Maddie's room. Let's have a look here in Jenn's ensuite bathroom. We know this is where Maddie's toothbrush was kept. So, if Jenn didn't see Maddie that morning, Jenn would have to realise that Maddie can't have gone through to brush her teeth. But what else was in this bathroom that Maddie would have needed prior to going to school? Okay, I will zoom in a little bit, but because it's a long bench and the things are at different ends, I kind of can only zoom in so much. Okay, so while I'm talking, have a look and see what you can spot. I can see another makeup station. There's makeup sponges, there's blenders there. There is a toothbrush. There's all sorts of creams and moisturisers. And there's 2 hairbrushes. We didn't see a hairbrush in Maddie's room. There's 2 hairbrushes in this bathroom. To get herself ready for school, Maddie would have needed to come into this bathroom at the very least to brush her teeth, brush her hair, put on her makeup, do anything else that she may have needed to do that morning. She also would have needed to retrieve her ADHD meds from Jenn's room. Apparently, Jenn never saw Maddie. She was awake enough to wake up the moment that Stephen walked into her room. So logic would dictate that she would be awake enough to notice if Maddie walked into her bedroom. She heard someone out in the kitchen banging cupboard doors, which to me would suggest that if someone had gone through her room to go to the bathroom, she would definitely be aware of it. So why was this never discussed? Why did Jenn not see this as a red flag and be saying to the detectives, something is really wrong? Not only did I not see Maddie that morning, but she didn't do any of the things she would normally do to get ready for school. She is a 13-year-old girl who's seen the pictures. She would not have gone to school without brushing her hair, brushing her teeth and doing her makeup. Nah, not a chance. Not going to happen. Yeah, there's one or two things in her bag, but they're the sort of things you have for touch-ups, not for actually putting on your makeup properly. There's no eyeshadow or anything in there. So, to me, this makes Jenn look really, really bad. She's so very clear about, actually, I didn't see Maddie. I know I didn't see Maddie. It even occurred to me that I didn't see Maddie. I thought about the fact that I saw Stefan. I thought about the fact that I heard cupboard doors. But I realised that despite that, I didn't see or hear Maddie. They've asked her about Maddie's routines, which should prompt her to suddenly have that light bulb moment and go, oh heck yeah, Maddie didn't come and get her meds. Maddie didn't go and brush her hair or put on her makeup. Maddie did not set foot in my bedroom at all. None of that happened. To me, this is a huge, huge concern. Now, I'm hoping that perhaps the reason she wasn't asked about it is because detectives hadn't seen all these evidence photos in those earlier interviews, meaning that the only opportunity to ask her about it could have been the 18th of April interview. If they didn't ask her about these things during that interview, that could mean that they're keeping them up their sleeve for later prosecution. But the questions were never asked. Did Maddie take her medications that morning before school? Or do you know if Maddie took her medications that morning before school? The questions were never asked. They asked about where Maddie brushes her teeth. But they never asked, where does Maddie brush her hair? Where does Maddie prepare for school? Where does Maddie keep her makeup when she prepares for school? None of those questions were asked, and they could have been key things which could have shown guilty knowledge on Jenn's part. They questioned Jenn again in that April 18th interview about taking Maddie's phone with her to collect Maddie from school. At that point in time, they had to have known that Jenn must have realised that Maddie didn't have a drink with her, but they didn't question her about that either. And like I said, that phone would have been far harder to spot than a drink bottle, where basically the moment that Jenn walked out of her bedroom, it would have been staring her in the face. And yet she never felt the need to drop into the school to make sure that she dropped off Maddie's drink bottle and phone. Had she forgotten just her phone, yeah, maybe you'd go, okay, well, she can go without it for the day. But had she forgotten two things, one of them being a drink bottle, if you are this mother who supposedly your whole world evolves around your daughter, wouldn't you just feel this desperate need to drop those things off at the school for your daughter? Especially when you had an appointment in the vicinity. These things to me are just major, major signs of guilt. So I'd really love to hear people's thoughts on these things. Do you agree with me that this makes Jenn look bad? Or is there some other explanation that you can perhaps suggest that may make Jenn look not quite so guilty? So thanks for listening. Please, if you're new, subscribe to my channel. Help me to grow and hopefully reach 3,000 subscribers. And hit the like button. YouTube loves that, and it gets my video out there and seen by more people. And please do leave a comment below. I love hearing your thoughts on my videos. I love when people come up with other suggestions, things that I've forgotten. I love people's comments. I love reading everyone's comments. Like I said, my channel has grown so quickly over the last so many weeks that it's a struggle to answer everyone's comments. I do my best, but there's only so many hours in the day, but I definitely do read everyone's comments, and I appreciate you all so much. So, thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I begin to wonder